it in Colossians. All things were made by him, through him, and for him. Okay? And I get them out on the porch. And I'm like, let's get into John 1. And they know right where I'm going. John 1. In the beginning was God. The Word was with God. The Word was God. And then later on in the first chapter, it says, the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. Alright? No, we're not moving on to another sentence. We're staying on John 1, guys. You're going to knock on my door on Saturday morning, wake me up, get my dog barking, and you're going to tell me what? No, we're going to talk about what I want to talk about. No, you're not going yet. Go inside and make my coffee. Right? And I'm telling you. So, anyway, but the point that I'm getting at is that there was a campaign a few months ago where there was a pro-life campaign, and there was somebody out in the audience where there was abortion, the right for the mother's right to have abortion. And there's a guy out in the audience, he yelled, "Christ is King." Okay? And the nominee said, "You're at the wrong rally, honey." And I wasn't even going to do this year. I wasn't even going to do a talk this year. And at that moment, I was like, no. She said, "You're at the wrong rally, honey." This guy's out in the audience. They called him, they was escorting him out. And it didn't surprise me what the nominee said. What surprised me is that the crowd cheered without hesitation. Yeah! They went crazy. I just said, oh my gosh. Not like I didn't know it. But when somebody instantly reacts like that, their mind don't have time to process. They're not looking around and seeing, oh, is this guy cheering? Is this guy cheering? I'm going to cheer too. No, it was instant. You know, people hate the name Jesus. Why? Because it's the truth. It's the truth. And this gets up to America. When America. Let me go back to Peter and James and John real quick. Let me get on that. What's my time looking like? How much?
6:31.
I can see the butt start to move a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead. Right? Well, you got to look at body language when people start to get tired. And, you know, I've done this enough where I know how people are thinking. Right? Right? Poor pastor, he's having a hard time. He's going to be vertical here if I keep talking another 20 minutes. Look at that. I got that. Right? He's going to be vertical here. Right? So anyway, so the point that I'm trying to get to is no matter what anybody says out there, if they're going to try, you shouldn't be on the defensive when you're talking about the existence of God and Jesus Christ. Because, like, look, man, you know, we've got that. You've got we've got logic, reason, and evidence. What more do you want? Okay? So, with Peter, James, and John. So here comes this dude out of nowhere. The Jews are expecting the Messiah. The Jews are expecting, they've been waiting for this guy who's been prophesied about through Isaiah and Jeremiah and the minor prophets and all these people. So, but they're expecting an earthly king that's going to come back and it's going to raise Israel back up. And by this time, you've got the Romans. Okay, the Romans are taxing them to death. Right? The Romans are taxing them to death. And there's even some that try to just claim that there wasn't a census during when Jesus was born. Okay? That's not true. Right? Augustus, he taxed the whole Roman Empire, I think it was every 7 years. Right? They did exclude Palestine because they didn't have to serve in the military. But the year that he did it, he taxed everybody. Okay? So, you get this guy John the Baptist, who's out here acting crazy, out here, you know, get right. Okay? Now, baptism, by the way, baptism was used when people were converting into Judaism. Okay, so, right, so say if you were a Canaanite, or if you were, you know, out here worshiping Baal or whatever, and you wanted to go be a Jew, you would get baptized, right? John the Baptist was baptizing Jews. Okay, that's significant. Okay, another thing too is these Pharisees. The Pharisees were like the educated scholars of the time. When they got taken away in the exile 500 years earlier, the prophets stopped. Okay, Saul, David, and Solomon were all led by a personal prophet, and God talked to them personally. Okay, during the 400 years, there was no conversation between God and these people. So the Pharisees, what is now called Rabbinic Judaism, became the leaders. Okay, they even come up with what's called an oral Torah, okay, which is called the Mishnah, to where they interpreted what the Torah means. Okay, I'm sorry, I've interpreted it myself, right? But these people couldn't read it, but anyway, so here comes this John the Baptist. Get right. Right, and here comes this dude out of just a regular old guy, nobody special. Okay, John the Baptist, like, that's him, that's the dude right there. Right, this guy comes in, and all the miracles aside, okay, all the miracles aside, the dove coming, and and the word speaking, this is my beloved son. Okay, this dude goes to fishermen who lived in a place called Capernaum, which is in the district of Galilee. Galilee was kind of like the eastern shore of Israel. Okay, it was far, it was to the north. It was a rural place. They spoke a thick dialect. Okay, they were uneducated somewhat. Sounds like what I've been told about me my whole life. Right? So Jesus says, "Come on, follow me. Come on. Leave your net." We know that happened. Why? Because we've got the historical evidence of Polycarp, Clement, and the Gospels. The Gospels are a historical account. They're a historical account, and the only reason why people disclaim them is because they can't fathom the concept of miracles. Number one, for us to even be here, there had to be a miracle. Because for something out of that's always existed to create matter, you create matter from nothing. That's a pretty good daggone miracle. Okay? Another thing too is that say if you believe in the Big Bang. Okay, that's what you got the Big Bang and all this. Alright, so we got this cone for 14,000 trillion years. And that moment right after the Big Bang is called the Planck epoch. During this Planck epoch, all scientific laws completely break down. So if you got something that outside of, if it can't be explained scientifically, logically, rationally, and it cannot be reproduced, that sounds like a miracle. That's a miracle. It's a definition of miracle all day. So for even the universe to be here, according to science, it's a miracle. So we cannot disclaim the Gospels just because they speak among miracles. Number two is that 30 years after Jesus Christ died, after they saw him hanging on this cross, which is documented by a Roman emperor named Tacitus, a Jewish historian named Josephus. Okay, Josephus didn't write about the crucifixion, but he did write about James, the brother of this Jesus. So, you get these, and we know this, that during the period of Nero burnt down Rome. He was getting blamed for it, so he said, we're going to blame it on these Jewish group, Christians, right? The name Roman candle are Christians that were dipped in oil and set afire. Set afire. The Apostle Paul was locked up on the same street there across the Colosseum, hearing these screams of these Christians getting mauled, slaughtered, and mauled. And they would go to these people and say, "Look, man, all you got to do is just say this Jesus is not Lord. Just say that Caesar is Lord, and your children are going to go out there and get slaughtered. Come on." Can't do it. I cannot do it. I saw this Jesus. That's the only reason you would let your children die. That's the only reason why you would die. There's no other logical reason. I know myself, if I was making this stuff up, I'd be like, just kidding. Let me out of here, you know. I mean, but for them to not say it, okay, that is a provable truth. So you got this Amazing Grace. It was written by a guy named John Newton. He was a sailor. He was a sailor. He was a slave trader. He was a slave trader, and he worked on his boats, and he said that he was so vile. So he mocked God during these storms, okay? And even the worst sailors, okay, had respect for what was going, you know, for the nature, or for the control, okay? There's even a saying around here that if you don't believe in God when you start working the water, that you will by the time you're done, all right? That's a local saying, okay? I've been out there, and not so much at sunset, but when that sun is coming across that horizon, and there's a moment right before that sun comes up to where you can't tell where the sky begins and the water begins when there's super slick cam days. I'm sure you watermen have seen, islanders have seen it. But, oh my God, where am I at? Am I in the sky? Am I on the water? Am I on a boat? Where am I at? You don't know. You know, and it only lasts for a couple minutes. And then 20 minutes later, you're out there like, God, forget me. I'll never come back out here. I promise. Okay? You know, all right, within a matter of minutes. I've been out there, I was talking about it earlier, that I've been out there and lightning was hitting. We were during the double crab run. He was talking about your when you were out there getting your in Fairmount. Your dad was like, waving you in, come on in. I've been out there with double crab run. When you're getting out there catching saw crabs, you ain't coming in. You know, because you got to get them up. Lightning was crashing and it was blinding me. I mean, it was so close, it was blinding all of us, and I'm like, you know, I'm trying to get these crabs. So that shows you just how small and minute, fallible that we are. All right. So these fishermen, this Amazing Grace, the most unlikely people. A Jew that just nobody cared about. Nobody cared about Jesus Christ. Who would this guy? But this guy, we counted the years down from him, and after his birth, we counted the years away from him. They can call it Common Era, before Common Era, whatever they want. It's AC, ADBC, right? And that's measured, Christ measures our time. Okay, like it or not. And he only preached for 3 years. 3 years of all the human history, and he has had more impact than any person, every person put together. But he chose these fishermen. He chose these guys that are not anywhere capable, anywhere able. And then the Sea of Galilee, okay? In the Bible, you'll say, oh, we went down to this place or we went up to this place. A lot of times in Scripture, you got to understand that when they say we're going up somewhere, it doesn't mean north. It means you're going up the mountain. Or when they say we're going down somewhere, it means you're going down the mountain and not south. But the Sea of Galilee is like 300 feet below sea level. And the winds come, and so they're all out in his boat. Peter, who's sure the captain, he's the big robust guy, okay? You got James and John, who's the sons of Zebedee, Jesus named the sons of thunder, Andrew, Peter's brother, and you got the elements, okay? Jesus sleeping in the stern. Here comes the storm. Oh gosh. Wakes up, okay? And come on. Stop it. And the seas get calm. Okay? Yeah, I think it's Mark that says that they were afraid, but then after that they became very afraid. Like, who was this guy to where So these people, when they started going out in like the book of Acts and the epistles, and you read about all these people that were martyred and stuff, they took the most unworthy, the most unlikely, the least educated. Okay? And this goes all through history. But when we start getting into, I don't want to say Antichrist, but I'm going to say Antichrist. Because when you start getting these religions coming up, and you're like, look, there's a world religion. It's a very popular religion. It's a major religion. It's the largest Christian denomination in the world that believes that that believes in word. I don't want to say any names, but that's faith plus works. Okay? Faith plus works. Okay? That is not grace. That is not grace. Grace is not what we do. Is it? Am I right or wrong? No, it can't be. So, when this psalm was written, Somerset County was one of the oldest counties in America. Up north, we got 1620, here comes the Plymouth people. They're Puritans. Puritans is the offshoot of what's called the Anglican Church. The Anglican Church is the Church of England. It broke off from the Catholic Church because King Henry VIII wanted to divorce his wife and the Pope wouldn't give it to him. Okay, so he's like, heck with you, I'll make my own church. Right? I'm the Pope of this church. Right? So, down in Virginia, you've got to sign up. When they went to Jamestown, okay, 1629, here comes George Calvin, who's a Catholic. They tried to make him sign an oath of loyalty to the Church of England. That cannot be grace. That's forced worship. That's forced. You worship this guy because I tell you to worship this guy. One of the greatest arguments against Islam is because, this is a religion of peace. Well, then why did Muhammad go around and cut everybody's head off who didn't want to become Islam? Come on, right? So, when they started coming up, the shore, 1620, the same year that they did the Puritans, and the Puritans were offshoot of the Anglican Church. You couldn't wear a red ring. They were pure. They were okay. And plus, this time you had what was called the Reformation, the Protestant Reformation, with John Wycliffe, Martin Luther, William Tyndale. This John Wycliffe, he lived in the 1300s. He was one of the first ones to actually translate the Bible from the original Greek instead of the Latin Vulgate. The Latin Vulgate is the translation that had been used by the Catholic Church for centuries. And it was vulgar, right? It was just full of lies and full of misinterpretations. So he caused a big schism, is what they're called in the Catholic Church. He died, but 100 years later, later on, they dug up his bones and burned them. They did not like this dude. William Tyndale, he's the one that actually translated the first whole New Testament from the Greek. They strangled him, and he said, "Oh Lord, please open up the eyes of the King of England." Okay, this is the 1530s, 1540s. So, that's forced religion. That's forced religion, that is not grace. So we got 1607 down here in Jamestown. Okay, forced religion. St. Mary's. Okay, now Maryland's always gone down as a colony that was a haven for Catholics. Half the people that came over were Protestant. Half the people that came over were Church of England. Right during this time, you got over in Holland, you've got Baptists. You've got they're called Anabaptists, and you've got what's called the Society of Friends, who were Quakers. George Fox on Eastern Shore of Virginia, 1655, his people came over and they started teaching what was called Quakerism. All right? And one of the big things that I found that people liked about it is they didn't pay taxes to the church, right? So like, sign me up. I ain't got to pay for these taxes, man. That's what I want to do. But it took off and it became very popular. 1659, Virginia ordered an anti-Quaker law. You had to sign an oath of loyalty to the Church of England or get out. So they're like, rode over to St. Mary's and they said, "Hey, look, can we come up to Maryland?" They said, "Yeah, we got a place right here called Anamessex." Okay? And this is where they came to. So, these people were coming, fleeing religion. So now the Quaker were actually, you could look at that, and one of the things that they believed in is they believed that all people could be saved. Okay? This included African Americans and the Native Americans. This was debated about in the Anglican Church. Catholic, no way. You know, if you're considered a savage, you're going to be a savage. There is no saving you. Church of England was a little bit different. They weren't sure, but these Quakers were like, yes, everybody can be saved. However, the Quakers were gone. I have 1660s, 1670s. By 1680s, the Quakers, I haven't seen anything from them after the 1680s. 1689, we get what's called the Glorious Revolution. By 1692, people in Somerset County had to sign an oath of loyalty to the Anglican Church. This is where we get the parishes. This is where you get Coventry Parish and start getting all the records and the people. Okay, you had to pay for the rectory, you had to pay for the priest, you had to pay for the buildings. 1746, up here at Dollar General, St. Paul's, they just tore it down. That was built over there, right by where Dollar General is, back in the field. There's a lane that goes up. Okay. 1746, they charged Somerset 40,000 pounds of tobacco to build this church. It's called the Chapel of the Ease and the Message. These people did not care about the church. There was an evangelist who come through this area right around that same time, and he was on the Pocomoke side, and he says, "Look, sir," he said, "do you know Jesus Christ?" He said, "No, but if you want to leave your name, I'll tell him you're looking for him if he comes through." He didn't even know the name. He didn't even hear the name. So, you're going to charge these people 40,000 pounds of tobacco to build a church that you don't even want to go to, even though your children have to be registered, even though your marriages have to be registered, even though you have to give these people money, right? So, there was a breakdown. That is not anything close to what the Bible teaches about who Jesus Christ is or what Jesus Christ is to people, or what he came to do. Okay? Then in the 1770s, we've got John Wesley comes over. Now, John Wesley, he was the Church of England. He gets into some different theological differences, Arminianism, stuff like that, that's the predestination, different stuff. But he was really one of the first, he was the first that I found that teaches stress the concept of rebirth. That you have to die of your old self and become a new person. Right? And Pete John talks about it, Jesus talked about it to Nicodemus. He said, and Paul writes about it in Romans, you got to die your old self and then be reborn. And Jesus said this to Nicodemus, and one of the things that I like when he goes, Jesus says, "You mean tell me that you're a great teacher of Israel and you don't know this?" Right? That's like, I mean, these guys were like the most scholastic, educated. He was a Pharisee. He was one of the most, I mean, they were like telling somebody, it'd be like me telling a historian from Yale, like, "Man, you're a clown." And I've done it, but it's still the same thing. So, to wrap this up, and I'm going to still talk a little bit about the history here, but the Holy of Holies, when the 40 years they were in the desert, okay, they're in the temple, you got certain areas of the temple to where you could go and you got a little closer, and then finally you got to where the mercy seat was and the Holy of Holies, the most holy of holies. Only a certain few people could go there, only a certain time of year. The grace that Jesus Christ allowed is that when that curtain ripped, we all had access to the Holy of Holies. Every single person who calls on the name, who knows the name, who knows who Jesus Christ is, has access to that Holy of Holies and the mercy seat. So, that is the awesome, the amazing grace. That's something that is so powerful that strikes down an obedient servant for touching. Okay? It's going to make himself flesh because he knows that people like me, people like this man on this ship, he was a slave trader, he was, okay, all right? That's the amazing grace. That is the amazing grace. That is the gift of Christmas. Christmas is not a season to where we fill up our bellies and then 2 hours later push people down to try to get the best deal. That has nothing to do with Jesus Christ whatsoever. Okay? The materialistic buying and saying, you know, right? And if you go and look back even 100 years ago, 150 years ago, Christmas has changed a lot. A whole lot. You go look at these Coca-Cola ads and they started putting Santa Claus on. Well, it's like a flip of a switch. Satan's like, here I am, guys. Merry Christmas, you know, let's go out and spend it, all right? And so, but that's not what Christmas is. When this era, when these people came here, in this spot, right here where we're standing, you got, this is the Miles meeting house. Miles he was also in the Henry Miles, okay? He's buried right outside there. He was what?
Right here in the side yard?
Yes, right in the side yard, right out here. He was captain. He was captain in the Continental. You had what was called the Little Iron Messick Regiment. This is a militia, drafted in 1780. Okay, 1780. You got Hans Lawson. He was one of the, and you got another guy named David Tyler. Hans Lawson, I don't know if David Tyler would have ever been here, but this was the heart of Anamessis. This is about the heart of Anamessis you can get. You got big Anamessis, spit that way. You got little Anamessis, spit that way. So you're right in the heart. Jones Creek, this was the biggest, one of the biggest shipbuilding areas on the whole eastern shore. Right here. Right here, you had, and this is where they met. This is where they met. This was a crossroads of the road. This is the old county road that goes right up. Not this one, but the other one that's real twisty and bendy. But it did come right through here. You've got a shipbuilding, okay? And so they start meeting here. Now, Hans, they're originally from Dorchester, okay? His grandfather bought property out on Smith Home. We got a guy, Hans Lawson, 1683, that laid out the highways. But these guys weren't like lawyers. They were rich. They bought a small acre of property of land down on Jenkins Creek, Bay Bush Hall, right? Ain't Bay Bush Hall? Yeah, and I mean, they weren't nobody special. They weren't nobody special at all. I bet there were 5 Sterlings for every Lawson. Probably 10, right?
That's right.
5, 10?
There's a lot of them.
There's a lot. 10? Okay. Now, so you got 10 Sterlings for every one Lawson. But the place is called Lawsonia.